Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez had a fight agreed to for August 16th in Saudi Arabia. Then now it's not agreed to. The fight's off. I'll start with my take on it, Raheem. So this fight was coming without a lot of momentum if it was going to happen August 16th in Saudi. The 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 hopes we had for these young men, these kids at the time who are now young men, is that they could be the four kings, that they can take a sport that's struggling in the United States with young, captivating talent that could grab the youth, that can grab the mainstream sports market. Our hopes were pinned on these guys, Gervonta Davis, Shakur, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, Teofimo Lopez, that they could elevate the game, particularly in America. And and it's fitting that this fight would wind up happening in Saudi for no title at a catchweight because that's emblematic of them falling short collectively of the very, very, very high standards we've placed on them. And all of them are decorated fighters. All of them could potentially, except for Ryan Garcia, who's got a lot of work to do, but the other four could all be Hall of Famers when it's all said and done. But the truth of the matter is, they could all wind up being Hall of Famers and still falling short of the very, very, very high expectations we had. Because when you start flirting with a moniker that was once given to Leonard, Hearns, Duran, and Hagler, the expectations are high. So this fight should have been made, Haney and Lopez, in 2024. But because that Haney is coming off the Pro Grace win, he's the WBC super lightweight champ. Lopez winds up beating Josh Taylor to become the man at 140 pounds, the super lightweight champ. That was the time to do it. They both had a belt. They could have unified. They both still had a business connection to Bob Arum, and I'm not shilling for Top Rank or none of that. But Arum, in a fight with Arum, you're gonna eat what you kill. You're gonna eat what you kill. And I think both of those guys have pie in the sky expectations of their value when they fight each other. They think they need to make 10 million minimum. And I think Arum would have gave them 5 or 6 million apiece, but it would have been the money they were actually worth. And maybe if they sold the pay-per-view and went crazy, it could have went up. So I'll never forget that wrinkle in time because all of a sudden they didn't know each other. All of a sudden, they're number 1 and 2 at 140 pounds, both undefeated. They can make a fight happen, and they didn't know each other. Devin wanted to chase the clout. He wanted to fight Ryan. Hey, I want to one-up Gervonta Davis when Devin was doing so well for him on the straight and narrow, trying to collect belts and weight classes and build a legacy and a resume through accomplishments. But then seeing Gervonta get all that fame and all that money off Ryan Garcia, he went this way. And his career has went this way along with it since he went for it. So all that said, even at a catchweight, even in Saudi, I'm not there literally, but I'm there figuratively because these two guys are in their 20s, and we gotta see Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez mix it up at some point. Heading into a potential fight right now, Lopez is the favorite because he's got momentum, not a ton of momentum, but he's got momentum and Haney does not. But despite that, I'm not convinced that Lopez beats Haney. Styles make fights, and Lopez has always struggled against movers, against guys, because Lopez is at his best as a counterpuncher and as a guy that could box and use his athleticism in the center of the ring. But if you're not coming to him and he has to cut distance, Lopez Raheem loves to fight with his left hand low, like a Roy Jones. And even Floyd Mayweather, when he cut distance against McGregor or Zab Judah, he picked the hands up and go in the high guard. Lopez doesn't do that. Haney's bigger than him, so I think the higher the weight they go, the more that favors Haney. Haney's bigger than him. He's longer than him. And trying to cut distance with your lead hand low, Haney could capitalize on all that. Stylistically, I've always thought it's a bad style matchup for Lopez, even though Lopez is the better overall fighter. He's a sharper puncher, a more explosive puncher. I think he's a little twitchier and more athletic and quicker, but he struggles against boxers like Sandor Martin and Jermaine Ortiz. What do you think, Raheem, of all of that? And by the way, one more thing. I don't want to hear it about who ducked who and who, because I get it. Lopez turned down 11 million. Lopez turned down 7 million before. He could have fought Haney last year or earlier this year, and he turned down millions of dollars. I get it if you want to just Lopez is a duck. Lopez talked all this racist shit, and now he's turning down a career high payday to fight. Hey, I get it, but I can't be moved anymore with these guys about he ducked him. And it's always with these four kings, these 4 or 5 guys, it's always he's ducking him, and this is why. And 75-25 with the Shakur. Look, I'm not moved by any of it. Call me when something's actually ready to go. What'd you think, though, Raheem?
Or princes at best, maybe paupers. The first thing I feel must be addressed, and it hasn't been said in quite some time because it hasn't been demonstrated in some time. Devin Haney's a nice guy. He's a good Muslim boy. And he is trying to be first Floyd Mayweather, which is what you were describing earlier in his career, where he's chasing big fights and everyone sees that Gervonta was guided a different way. There's a few tracks you can go in boxing, a few different ways you can go. The Mayweather formula does work, but it only works if you are meticulous about how you put that formula together. You have to be incredibly disciplined about how you pick the fights and then bet on yourself that you can bring pay-per-view buys and asses to the seats for fights that might not necessarily warrant it on your name alone. And you can make opponents nothing more than opponents, and you're the star of the show. That's a big gamble in boxing. And Floyd helped Gervonta create that exact formula for himself. And so it worked because Gervonta, when it came time to deliver the action fight, he done it. When it came time to be this character that was loved in the hood and had a crossover appeal without seeming to be putting on a character or trying to be somebody he wasn't, it is who he is. It worked because people related to it because it was authentic. And you're right when you say that Devin saw that and chased that. But even before that, he was chasing the Mayweather thing, which wasn't a bad idea because he was chasing it the way Mayweather created it initially, which was hard work, dedication, tireless effort, and doing what needed to be done to win the fight, whether it was a knockout or by points. You had to dominate, and you got your advantage in the gym, and it showed itself in the fight. That's young Devin Haney. Devin Haney, again, is a nice guy. He's a young, good boy. And I don't mean that in the, way you can take boy. I mean boy in that he is a young man. And when I'm saying he was a younger man is the time I'm referencing.
Yeah.
What he got distracted by was the shiny object of other people's images and persona and what that seemed to reward them. And he created a character around trying to emulate something that he wasn't. And I like what he is better than what he created. And it didn't play because it wasn't authentic. And it's also not better. It's just different. But he saw what was being rewarded those guys and thought he could get a piece of that by creating a character. When the Floyd Mayweather thing started to fizzle because Devonta with the gold teeth and the big chains and the, 2 or 3 words and a somewhat kind of shitty attitude, he started to do that. I don't think that's him either. These gold diamond fronts and all this shit. Yes, maybe that is something that a young man can aspire to and wants to show that he's wealthy and successful, but I don't think that's in his true character. I think he's a more solid guy than that. I don't think he has genuinely that level of insecurity where he needs to show that to feel successful. If he stayed true to who he really is, I think he'd be a more likable, bigger draw just being Devin Haney in contrast to those guys. I remember when I started seeing him tweeting and cursing and saying kind of vile shit on the internet. Like one day he wasn't doing that, and the next day, like that's kind of what his shtick was. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Why is he talking like this?
Well, it was funny when he took a picture at Mecca, right? And then the next day he tweeted at Richardson Hitchens, "You bitch ass, such and such," and da 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 da.
Yeah.
Where's you just at Mecca the day before?
The picture, I believe, that's him. The tweet is a character that he thinks can get him some money, and that's a mistake. Devin Haney has a long road ahead of him. I think he will mature through this era. I don't think he's done himself any disservice. I respect his undefeated record. I consider him an undefeated fighter. I think he stunk New York City up, being a little too clever by half, being a little bit, as we might say in these British streets, cheeky and trying to overdo it and should have engaged in a boxing match he could win. And instead, I think, as I said, after that fight, he just doesn't see the reward in valor anymore. He's going Floyd ×2 now. Just like fuck it. I just do the very bare minimum with the least risk and get the W because you guys aren't going to give me credit for anything else anyway. And if I do get wobbled, if I do put myself in harm's way, if I do get hurt, if God forbid if I lose, it's going to be all memes and what a pussy hole I am. You know what I mean? So why do that? So that, I think, is something else he'll have to grow through and find the right balance for. However, with all that said, I think he will. I think that future is still bright. I think that his best days are ahead of him. Teofimo Lopez, unfortunately, did not learn what Lomachenko learned after Salido. He did not grow into a more mature character. He is not developing into a very good man. He is a silly, silly boy. And he is behaving like somebody who's throwing his toys out of the pram. And that's the crib for those Americans. I'm quite getting steeped in this Brit lingo, I must say. This stuff that I'm seeing from Lopez is just stupid. It's stupid. I'm not even offended by the racism because it's so dumb. You know what I mean? It's just, I'm embarrassed for him. And who's still falling on those triggers? Like, what? Who are you even triggering? Like, it's a mass eye roll. And really, like, it's a cringe. Like, bro, what are you doing? And what do you think you're accomplishing? You're embarrassing yourself. I mean, you're embarrassing your dad, for Christ's sake. Like, not even your dad is you know what I mean? Like, your dad figured it out that he needed to even tone it down. And now you're worse than what he was at his worst. And now, you know, listen, if you want to go to war with Turkey and the media, whatever, stand up, stand on business, say what you got to say, but say what you got to say. Don't, you know what I mean? Start using puns and silly name calling and not really saying what it is and getting it in negotiations and then getting out of them. And tell us what it is then. If the guy's a dictator, why? What did he try to dictate? What did you turn down? What was the shady deal? What was the situation? Because you're not really standing on business. You're not really doing anything but crying and making a big fuss and wasting everybody's time. That is not dope. That is not fresh. That's not anything I respect. Like, make a fight or don't make a fight. And if you're not making the fight because of somebody else's activities or you think somebody's being corrupt, you're getting a raw deal, and you want to go out on social media and put it all on Front Street, then put it on Front Street. Don't give us some like half-ass complaint and start acting like a 2-year-old. And then I mean, it got to the point where the fight got announced, right? Like almost twice. Was it twice that the thing got announced and pulled back? So I believe
at least once.
I mean, okay, it was announced once, but it was done between the whispering campaign behind the scenes of boxing. People were like, "Oh, it'll be announced in a minute." Then that got pulled back, and then it got officially announced, and then it got pulled back. So what I do believe is that everybody wanted to make that fight but him. I believe that. And what I can't say is whether or not he should have made the fight with whatever deal was on the table, because we don't know what the deal is on the table. If you're going to be that guy who wants to go to war and say
Devin
all the
says
things,
it was 11 million.
say the thing.
I once heard from people that were pretty reliable that he was once previously, before this round of negotiations, offered 7 million, which he turned down for the Haney fight as well.
Yeah, I'm saying that's what Devin says. Obviously, Turkey's not saying anything. He's the guy signing checks, so he doesn't really have to get engaged in these kind of frivolous back and forth. But if you are going to expose something, then expose it or shut the fuck up, dude. You know, I don't believe any of it. I don't even believe it. You know what's the only thing worse than a racist is a fake racist. Like, when I see him, it's all love. I see him, around a bunch of N-words, as he would call them, apparently. I've not seen him call them that to their face. I've not even seen him act like that. Maybe he'll act like that with me now since I've said this, but I'd like to see it. I'd like to know if that's how you really feel about us. I'd like to know if that's how you really feel about all the black people you encounter when you walk the streets of New York, when you run into these boxing arenas. You know what they say? Keep that same energy. The reason you can't keep it is because you don't even have it, dude. You're not even a racist. You're just a dumbass. And right now, you're fucking up your own bag. If we don't get if we don't get Lopez, Haney, will it be a shame? Kinda. Will I be kept up at night? No. Right. Will you have to remind me that we didn't see that fight in a couple of years? Yes. It's not something I would be like, man, walking around every day wondering when we're going to get it. You're just going to fade, dude. You don't have that kind of pull. You don't have that kind of marquee power. You're not a guy that people like. and you're making yourself less and less likable. You almost saved the night in New York. You could have rode that ticket that you wrote in New York to a massive payday and a real kind of rebranding of your image. You could have grown up that night and grown into a star. And instead, you became a toddler. And it's a shame. But everybody has another chance to get it right tomorrow. And so maybe tomorrow we see the Teofimo Lopez that Teofimo Lopez deserves to be and the boxing world deserves to see.
Let me argue for T.O. a little bit, and in no way defend the N-word comments and all the other crazy shit at all. But that aside, Lopez, I'll never forget seeing him in the mall here in Vegas about around Christmas time 2020. He had just beaten Lomachenko, and he had to share Fighter of the Year honors with Tyson Fury. And me and Samantha and my son, who's one at the time, are walking through the mall. Who's in the food court? Teofimo eating Sabaros with his uncle, and he was sad, and he was sad that he had to share Fighter of the Year honors with Fury. And he looked at me. I could see the hurt in his eyes, and he goes, "What do you think of that, Sean?" And I think he wanted me to tell him what he wanted to hear. You should have been fighter. And I said, "Look, Tio, Sugar Ray Leonard shared it with Salvador Sanchez, and Sugar Ray Leonard beat Thomas Hearns, And I said, Fury's a heavyweight, I get it, your point. Wilder's not Lomachenko in an elite pound for pound sense." And I go, "But they're heavyweights, Tio. Like, it's a big deal. He came to America knocked out, didn't just beat, he dominated, knocked out an American champion who's a punch. It's all good. Blah, 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 blah. My son gives him a big hug and everything. We try to, cheer him up, but tell him the truth. So he thought that Lomachenko fight meant just the floodgates were going to open. And he fumbled that. He winds up, thumbing his nose at Arum, because he did only make about $1 million and a half fighting Lomachenko. For comparison's sake, Haney winds up making about $5 million plus. Haney was the champion. Lopez was not. There are reasons for this. But Lopez basically is, you could definitely argue, the most accomplished of all these young guys, and yet he may have been paid the least out of all of them, Ryan Garcia, Shakur included. So he's upset about that. He feels like, where's the justice? I thought this sport is all about racking up titles, being ring champion and all this. I've done it twice. These guys have only done it once, in Shakur and Devin. So he's upset about that. He's arguably the most accomplished out of all of them and the least compensated. It is because Gervonta will make huge money fighting lesser opponents because he got the Mayweather.
Yeah, but Sean, I can't. He's making less money because he has less fans, because he's less likable, because he makes these things happen after he has great moments. He had a great moment in New York. He had a great moment after
Taylor,
after Lomachenko. And who would have thought that Rolly Romero would surface as the most mature fighter out of the entire New York card?
Yeah, that's funny.
Who would have thought that Rolly Romero would be the guy that had the most character and presence after that fight? And he don't even want nothing from the Saudi regime. He doesn't even want anything from the Ring magazine. He doesn't even want it, which maybe is what makes him that much more respectable in his ability to be himself post-fight. In the post-fight interview, when he could have, and he did shit on Haney a little bit, no question, but fair play.
Yeah, that's part of the pack. Yeah, that's
part of the package.
That's standard fare. Like,
even that was like, he did it funny and respectful still. Right. And the fact that every time Lopez has a win, he takes two steps. Every time he takes a step forward, he works hard to take two steps back of likability. Like, and when him and his dad were both on 12 in every fucking moment, it's just not something I think that helps him. And yes, again, I've said it for a lot of fighters. I said it about Lomachenko. I'll keep saying it. These guys grow up in front of the world. So I try to have some bit of grace, because I did so in my own little world myself, being on camera and such, and not even close to the amount of visibility and money that these guys have at that age. So I can imagine how difficult it is to figure out what kind of man you want to be. But at some point, you got to stop stepping on your own dick. This guy can't get out of his own way, and it's getting tiresome. And that's why he's not getting the money and not getting the big opportunities for the big money that some of his performances warrant, because he takes away from those performances as soon as he's done. His personality and the way that he conducts himself is really not appealing to anybody. I mean, he doesn't even have a racist fan base. Who are you talking to, man? You know what I mean? If you're gonna be racist, at least have a racist fan base. What are you doing? Who wants to hear that shit? It's crazy. It's crazy. Look at this. Look at this, Sean. This is what you get from Lopez after he wins a fight. A big dump truck worth of fucking garbage. That's what you get. And in the ring, he's at top level fighter that could be an elite and dominating his weight class. If only he could get this kind of shit out of his mouth. Leave the garbage in the bin, bro, and let your business do the talking in the ring. And then your business will be much better outside the ring.
I think part of why he would turn down 11 million, like you said earlier in the video, Devin Haney's a good Muslim boy. He'd be fighting in a Muslim country with, in Saudi Arabia, and Haney has some ties there, and they're fond of him over there. They've received him well. Obviously, they're not going to receive Lopez well. They've received Haney well. And then when right away when it's a VADA tested fight, if you're Lopez, you probably think like Garcia thought, whether it's fair or not. It's speculative, obviously. But when Victor Conti has such a close association with Haney and such a close association with the testing agency, and you're going to be fighting in away grounds, you could understand why Lopez doesn't love fighting this fight right now overseas in those conditions. But that being
said, Then say that. Turn the fight down and say that. Right. Don't call him a nigger.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't call Turkey a dictator. Don't start getting on TV and acting an ass. Stand on business. Say that, and then we can talk about that. And we won't have to talk about this nonsense. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he doesn't have a reason to turn down the fight. I'm just saying he's never told us what it is. He said everything but that.
Let me push back on some of Devin Haney's narrative. He says, I wanted the fight at welterweight. Teo wanted the fight at 140. Well, yes, Devin. Teo wanted the fight at 140 because he's the man at 140. He's a champion at 140. You have no title right now. The last division you were champion in was 140. And again, they should have fought in 2024 when they each had a strap at 140. That'll be my what if. I won't lose sleep over them not fighting in 2025 at a catchweight. I do hate that they didn't fight at 140 for the title. And then another thing, Haney, you said, oh, well, Lopez was willing to fight Boots at 147, but he won't fight me at 147. Well, you're willing to fight Lopez at 147. Will you fight Boots at 147?
Got him.
So, but that said, Haney firing on all cylinders, I might give the edge to him because styles make fights. I don't think his style is a good one for Lopez. Let's close with this. Who do you think wins if they were to fight?
If I were to just make one comment about your weight negotiations, yeah. I don't fault Devin Haney for trying to negotiate a weight to his best advantage. If he believes that the catch weight is better than 140, then why not? He feels like he's got better standing in Saudi. Like I said, Lopez is not getting out of his own way. Take every advantage you can get. You know what I mean? If I can negotiate that Lopez has to fight with one hand tied behind his back, I'm putting it in the contract. If I think I can get him to sign it. So, I'm not mad about that, but you can't say because Lopez doesn't take those terms that he's ducking. That's nonsense, right? It's a negotiation tactic. It either works or it doesn't work. But it doesn't make somebody a duck because they don't take your terms if your terms are a catchweight. So, with that said, I honestly think if I had to gamble on it, I probably am going with Haney because he, I believe, will outbox Lopez. I think that the Lopez that we saw in New York, if he had fought Devin on that same night, I think Devin would have continued to stink the place up, but probably eked out a points victory. I think that's probably how it would have gone. I can't really speak for what Lopez's mindset would be going into that fight, which would greatly inform how I think he would perform. I think the Kambosos loss is a real testament to how much Lopez's mindset gives way to how he performs, whether he respects his opponent, whether he's gambled on the second round, whether or not his father is telling him this or telling him that. I think a lot has to do with where Lopez's head is at. And I think part of why he performed so well in New York is because he opened the card, because he wasn't a main event guy, because he wasn't getting the attention, because he wasn't distracted by being Lopez. And he was the best, most entertaining guy in the build up to the fight. He was trying to prove something on the night. So maybe when he's put in a position where he feels like he has to prove something, where he feels a little disrespected, that he performs better. So I would kind of need to know the circumstances of the fight and what his mentality is going in, and that might sway my prediction. But all things being even right now today, I call it for Haney.
I said I was done. I got to share one more thing because I heard from two really good sources what happened when they sparred, and I'll share it with the people. I think they'd be interested. They
All right. I don't count this as intel, but go ahead.
Gotcha. No, I hear you. So I got it from two different sources. One person was a championship trainer, a guy who had a current world champion at the time, had a world champion at the time. He was in the gym when they sparred. And then the other guy is a world champion right now, who we mentioned earlier in this video. I'll let you guys guess who it was. So the world champion told me Haney was outboxing Lopez, and then kind of similar to Haney's sparring session with Tank, he got hit with a big shot, this being an uppercut. And he said Haney was badly hurt. And this is after Haney was outboxing Lopez for some time in their sparring session. Gets hit with an uppercut he doesn't see coming. And apparently, if it was 8-ounce gloves on and no headgear, Haney would have been in danger of being stopped. The trainer told me Haney was outboxing Lopez, and then they started telling Lopez to be first more often because he's a counterpuncher. He's waiting on Haney. And then once Lopez started to be first with his jab, he performed much better as the sparring went on. So you guys do with that what you will.
I got one word for that. Rescindez. Don't let what happened in the gym fuck you up thinking that's what's going to happen in the ring.